I'm going to call the meeting to order. And can we do the roll call?
We'll do the roll call. Joyce Dalton.
Present.
Dan Granquist. Here. Wayne Hurt.
Here.
John Hendricks, I'm here. David Augustus. Here. Roger Potratz. Here. Anthony Holt.
Here.
Amy Bowman.
Here.
Deb Parcell.
Here.
Aaron Born-Graber.
He's here.
Yeah. Blake Sweetheart. Here. And Brian Denton.
Ready.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the agenda for tonight?
So moved.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Can everyone have a chance to review their minutes from our last meeting? Any questions or comments on them? Then I need a motion to approve.
Alright. Just in case anyone else shows up. Hey, everybody.
Hi, a chairman.
Thank you all for being here tonight. You're in good hands.
Very excited about Farina's Cafe this year.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Okay, any correspondence?
There is none.
Okay. I did want to, this isn't correspondence, but it's general information. Unless it's not listed on our agenda, we are not going to discuss it at a meeting. If it's something that needs to come before us, then it needs to be put in on the next meeting so that we can address it. If it's something very, very critical that you can't wait, then you see the man.
Before the meeting, then we can modify the agenda by approval if necessary.
Yes. Yes, we could.
The intent of that is obviously you can't add applications to it last minute because trying to have transparency and some noticing with that. But if it's a discussion item, then that can be added as a part of approving the agenda. But it would be best to, if there's something you think of, whether it's tonight or shortly before, like a week before the meeting, I recommend talking to Joyce, seeing if that should be on the agenda, and she can forward it to me. Just trying to ensure that what we're discussing is on the agenda as much as possible.
Public notice.
Yes. Okay, then we'll move to our certificates. The first one is for Main Street. Alright. Got these in different orders. And you notice we have nice, everything telling us what we, if you have any questions about any of that later on, let us know. I like that they've listed when our meetings are, so it's there for everyone to see.
All right, you ready for the staff report on 119 East 9th Street? It's in the Franklin Street Commercial Wood. Yes, it is. I'm sorry. It is. That didn't sound right, but it is. Franklin Street Commercial Local and National Register Districts. It is rated non-contributing. It's a commercial style building built in 1925. So the description of the proposed project as it was listed on the COA application. There's 6 parts to it. Remove existing framing, siding, glass at facade window area. Install 2 3/4 inch preformed cement sill at window opening base. Frame rough opening for glass panels and install Pella windows of an unknown variety. Well, I shouldn't say unknown. It's just in the application they're listed with 2 different types. So that's one thing we didn't verify because we had further conversation, which I'll get into. Number 4 is trim window openings with Meritech exterior trim. 5 is refinish existing door and all trim to match the window cladding. And number 6 is remove the existing Sherwood ceramic sign. So since then, I talked to the applicant and said that we really like to see storefront glass in a commercial building. And they said that they were getting a quote for that and would bring it to the meeting tonight for consideration. So the evaluation, there were, as I said, two different places in the application paperwork that I had. One specified Pella Architect Series, which is an aluminum clad wood window. Another one was Pella Impervia, which is a fiberglass window. Those are actually both on your pre-approved window list, but I'm not sure which one of those for certain. And then, like I said, we talked about traditional storefront glass. So windows should have narrow frames, typical of a storefront glass. The 6.5-inch trim that's proposed is not appropriate for a storefront. Refinishing the existing door and trim and removal of the existing sign meet the Historic District guidelines and could be approved by staff. So further conversation with the applicant included discussion of replacing the front windows with storefront glass. The applicant will bring a quote to the meeting for further discussion and possible approval. Traditional storefront glass with narrow metal trim sized to fit the original opening would be the recommended replacement for the existing glass and wood infill. We also talked with the applicant about the wood in the ceiling. The doorway is recessed and then the wood ceiling is quite deteriorated, and he agreed that that should be fixed and he would do that with materials in kind. So the staff recommendation is approval of items 1, 2, 5, and 6. So that would be the removing the framing, the siding, the glass that's there now, installing sills if that was necessary. That would depend on the type of window. Rough openings being framed in if necessary. Again, that depends on the type of window. Would approve refinishing the existing door and the trim that's there to match the window cladding, and would recommend approval of removing the sign that is currently on the building. Item number 3, replacement of the windows. I would recommend approval with the condition that storefront glass be used with a narrow metal frame. And then I would recommend denial of item 4, the wide window trim, which would not be necessary anyway if you went with the storefront glass.
Any questions? Is Mr. Carlson here?
Yes, I'm right here.
Okay. Do you have anything to report to us?
Yeah, we got a proposal from a company to do more typical storefront glass, and I have that here. It's really basic as far as the description of materials that would be used, but it's essentially it says install storefront glass and 1-inch insulated glass, so aluminum frame, just typical storefront glass. And so, yeah, we did get a proposal for that, and we are, and we're amenable to that, certainly, so.
Okay. Anyone have any questions?
I did want to add a comment.
Sure.
So the last inquiry I had was converting this to a residential unit. So that will require a use variance. So the requirement will be that it maintains its commercial appearance. So storefront glass would be the more appropriate action.
Yeah, sure, that's understandable.
Are you saying that it's not approved to be converted to residential? Is that what you said?
At this time,
Okay.
staff will support a variance. They will have to do a use variance. That's the full application process with the Board of Zoning Appeals. And the requirement, because we had several discussions on and off, that it has to maintain its commercial appearance.
I know the neighboring property was commercial and is now residential,
Correct.
so.
Any other questions?
And the bid that we got for the commercial installation would be the entire opening, there's
Okay.
no wood trim
That's good.
involved.
Good,
Just
yeah.
be-
That would be nice.
Yeah.
They wrap the opening with aluminum and then do the window installation.
So no tying in of brick or anything, no replacement of brick, no filling in the void there with brick?
No, there will be no void, there'll just be
Window,
window, yeah.
and then is there some sort of support there? I'm just looking at it.
All right, any other questions? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Okay, thank you. You're welcome to stay, or if you want to leave, that's understandable.
Okay.
All right, so you know the next steps, I will need that information as a part of the record. And then there will be a decision letter generated either today or tomorrow, by the end of this week, absolutely. And then you can submit for the, BZA, which is a 2-month long process.
Yeah,
That's all good. Thank you. All right, now we're going to move on to 825 Franklin Street.
25 Franklin Street. Of course, is in the Franklin Street Commercial, Local, and National Register of Historic Districts. Is rated contributing, an Italianate building built 1880 to 1895. So the description of the proposed project is repair masonry where detailed and paint the facade. So I think those pictures are attached to the application and the areas where it should be repaired. The evaluation, so it's the paint color, somewhere in there, yes. Shade of the white, yes. So, and all white is what we're looking at. It would be a single color scheme, it's currently 2 white with green detailing. So looking to go to all white. And then we talked more on the phone about that, and so he was able to give me renderings of the 2-color. And you printed those, that's in the
As
new.
part of the staff report.
Oh, yeah, that's
So-
the new one.
Right, so in that one, the cornice is painted solid black, and the window hoods are solid black, with the building being solid white. So evaluation, single color schemes are not recommended. The submitted rendering showing white walls and black paint on the cornice and window crowns is not recommended, as the details of those features cannot be seen when painted solid black. Generally, walls are painted one color and trim another, with decorative details painted a contrasting color to call attention to the ornamentation. The prism glass transom above the side door should be stripped of existing paint. Loose paint should be scraped from metal storefront elements and repaired as necessary and repainted. Brick should be repointed with mortar to match existing in strength, joint rate, and depth. Small bricks should be removed and either turned around and replaced or simply replaced. And since they'll be painted, it doesn't really matter if the bricks match in color, or the mortar for that matter, just as long as the strength is similar. So staff recommendation is approval with the condition that the paint scheme must include a minimum of 2 approved colors as currently used, or 3 colors for the body, trim, and accent, which would actually be preferred. That prism glass transom above the door be stripped of paint, and brick and metal be properly repaired, repointed, and painted.
Any questions?
Are the conditions subject to staff approval without coming back here?
I would say so.
I think the prism glass above the door in good enough shape to reuse.
I think it looks like it is. I think it looks good.
To add to that,
I've got some, I had some from my place. Those were, each individual panel is worth like $4, and it's only a 4x4 piece of glass. Several years ago. Does everyone know why those prism glasses were put up there? The reason is, if you look at the way the glass is, and I don't know if yours is that way or not, but the glass was so, the prism is so to direct light into the room, into the building, which I thought was kind of neat.
That is.
And then each piece was leaded in.
Above the main storefront, they're really nice and they're not painted. The only part that's painted for whatever reason is just right above the door that goes upstairs, so it is, it's really weird, but they all look very nice.
It's in good shape.
That's good. And I do want to add that the applicant, is applying for the facade grant from the redevelopment commission, so that if there is an increase in cost associated with that redevelopment, the redevelopment commission will cover 60% of that.
Oh, that's nice.
Great.
And I do want to add, so regarding the trim color, just so you know, in the historic preservation ordinance 6270 visual compatibility factors, there is a section that talks about relationship of materials, texture, and color. So the relationship of materials, texture, and color of the facade of a building must be visually compatible with the predominant materials used in the buildings, which they're visually related. So as Deb Purcell mentioned, 3 colors would definitely be the preferred route, because there is elements that are being lost with the 1 color, well, 2 colors.
I guess, let me pull up, this is the building just down this way, and I was gonna print this off, I failed to attach this. I don't know if you can see this at all, but it's the same design ornamentation on the hoods as well as in the cornice. All those buildings have the same, and they all have different variations of the way they're painted. In his now, the detailing is painted green, and you can see it definitely. I mean, that's better than solid 1 color, you can see that. But having that 3rd color in there really makes those details pop, and that's what we normally recommend in our guidelines and all of our information that we hand out, but that's kind of what we're thinking.
This is a nice presentation.
Thanks. We're excited about this tenant coming in, and we're really trying to perform to his expectations on the space. And our timeline is we're here in front of you because he's planning to open up May 15th. And as you know, he's going sort of gangbusters on the interior, so.
Nice.
Okay, any other questions? And we have a motion.
Motion to approve with the recommendation of 3 colors.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I would like to confirm that also includes the glass transom above the door, and the brick and metal will be properly prepared and pointed in. Is that correct?
Recommended, as recommended by staff with the 3 color
Okay, thank you.
portion, not the 2 color, but the
Yeah, right. Okay, moving on.
You'll receive a decision letter by the end of the week, and then you can go through the next process. And that way, it is just the facade grant,
And the additional color, is that the tenants?
It needs to be something off the approved color.
Okay.
So just let me know we can approve that as staff, so just let me know what you pick.
I'd like to get the tenant's feedback on that, because his was the second set of renditions
Okay.
by his designer, so I'll have to get his input.
Yeah, see what they think.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the development.
Yeah,
Exciting.
very nice.
Competition right next door. We have several restaurants right in the road there.
We need them. The more the merrier.
Speaking as a owner.
Yeah, please, yeah.
Okay, we're going to move on to West Fifth Street.
Okay, West Fifth Street is the new construction infill, so there's nothing there right now except grass. Proposed project, the owner proposes to construct a new residential style commercial building. So it'll look like a house, but used commercially. That's what that means. I know that sounds ridiculous, but that's what it is. So, yes. 2-story, LP Smart side, Geldwin, some kind of clad wood double hung windows, architectural asphalt shingle roof, and a porch at the front west side. I think you have renderings in your packet. There's a lot of information that we need, a lot of information. So I can only just make a very high-level overview evaluation, but that's what I'll do.
Is the applicant here?
They are not.
At this point, we need more detail. We need definitely an elevation, a real, not just a rendering, but an honest-to-goodness elevation. If it's going to be used commercially somewhere, there have to be drawings, so that would be helpful. We don't know specifically what type of siding goes where. They gave us samples of shade shingles. They gave us vertical siding. The rendering has some kind of panels showing on the bay windows. I don't know what those are. They gave us 8 different colors, so I don't know specifically what they're thinking. Those are all from the historic color palette, but I don't know what or where. Shingles, they gave us the type, but not the color. Windows, don't know what they're to be clad with, and they're spec'd out as having prairie grids that definitely do not go with that style of house at all. And if it is a commercial building, then there probably will be signage as well, and that was not addressed in the application. I'll give you the quick evaluation here. The proposed residential style building is taller than those across the street and is not architecturally compatible with the immediate surrounding properties. The architect's floor plan does not match the renderings. The detailed elevations are needed before a recommendation can be made. Specific concerns, which I've enumerated some, but what I have listed here, they include location of the house on the site. We don't have that at this point. Setbacks, elevation, siding type, shingle color, specific paint colors, window cladding, and porch detail. Prairie grids would not be appropriate. Also, as the building will be used commercially, a signage plan, if so, details would be needed. So staff recommendation is denial for lack of complete information.
Did you say something about halfway through there, you said something I didn't understand?
Okay, in what I just read?
Yeah.
I'll read it again if you want. The proposed residential style building is taller than those across the street and is not architecturally compatible with the immediate surrounding properties. The architect's floor plan does not match the renderings. I think the floor plan does not show a garage, the renderings do. There's a chimney on the rendering. There's no
Looks like
fireplace or
they
anything.
found a fancy house that they like to use for their business and then just adapted it to something else, but then,
It is, I know it's a Menards plan, that much I know.
oh,
Yeah, see here.
Yeah, I
Looked
saw
over a
that, yeah.
little bit.
need a little more detail.
Yeah, need a lot of
Lot more
detail.
detail.
So, yeah, and we don't have a site plan, so we don't know where they're located. There's how many lots? 4,
1, 2, 3.
Oh, we know where it is. So there is a site plan. It should be the last page at the very end.
Really?
Yes,
Guess I didn't print
it's
that.
sort of a site plan. Let's go with that.
Okay.
If you wanted to
Not put in
know,
my-
I
don't have that.
All right. I also will answer, I took this in primarily because I believe that the commission's feedback would be helpful for what the applicant should do. The applicant is passionate about this particular design, and speaking with Deb, that, this structure probably doesn't fit anywhere in Michigan City within the historic districts. It's a very good, I want to be a Queen Anne, but it's just failing on certain elements, and those are in the detailing with that. So, not sure why the applicant is not here. However, this is mostly, this is a commercial development, so the full commercial development standards apply. This is also a form-based code, so I have not done any zoning review with anything. And there's this process, but they also have to go to the development review committee, and they also need planning commission approval. So I am very supportive of Deb Parcells' recommendation for denial, and if the commission does vote that way, I highly recommend including in the motion why.
The site plan would include the location of the building on the property. There's no,
It's kind of there.
there's no building in mine.
Yeah, that's
I was-
what
Says building.
I was told I was gonna get an
It
update.
says it. Says doesn't show you.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's like, where's?
I mean, it's just right there.
Yeah, just kind of there.
It's there.
We understand, I'll hold it over and you can read it.
Madam President, is this the lady that owns the hairdressing downtown?
I have no idea.
I'm quite sure that is. The name sounds so familiar.
I know she has a salon somewhere and her lease is up. She needs to find another spot. She already has these lots, so her thinking
I think she
was
has
to
the-
move on to a new place that she owns.
Salon by Squiet. It's in that strip mall.
By Squat, no.
Fluid, it's down, I think she's down there.
No,
Isn't she?
no.
Sure, she didn't. own
That's
that.
Granaki. So no.
Lakefront.
It's not closing?
She sold it already, but not to this lady.
No.
Is it the architectural style that is not good here, or just because
It's everything.
Yeah, it's everything. I mean, that style just doesn't fit. It's across from Chippy, for crying out loud. This just does not, it doesn't work. I don't even know what's going on with this roof line. I think looks like a framing nightmare.
I don't know anywhere inside or outside of the historic district where this Queen Anne, it's trying to be a Queen Anne, it's just not quite nailing it in terms of its style and detailing elements. So that's one problem. There's also a lack of being able to review for zoning. This isn't a form-based code. Of my professional review, I'd say it wouldn't comply with most of the compatibility standards that are in the historic preservation ordinance. There's a lot of effort, and I believe the applicant backed themselves into a corner by trying to rush as soon as possible. And there was another proposal as well, which I did mention, I believe Deb as well, wasn't ideal. It was more vernacular in nature, which would probably be better for this particular historic district, as most of these homes were for what it was last Pullman, to be
this cable?
workers' homes and that nature. But this proposal just doesn't fit properly.
So if we make a motion, you suggest explaining why, so how long of a list do we put in for explaining why, Deb?
Everything that you think about this, I'll pass this around. She sent this to me initially as one of two designs, but she did not move forward with this one. This one I feel would be more compatible with the neighborhood,
But still need adjustments?
probably some,
Yeah.
but I think that would fit much better. Just something simpler, more low-key, and then we just need to know materials and stuff. And, being new construction, we have more flexibility there. We're not asking them to make it, a false sense of history, certainly.
Fit much better, but still.
Like the cigar shop.
Yeah.
But the applicant submitted that as a possibility?
No, that was not a formal submittal.
She sent that
No,
one
but
and this
informal.
one. Yeah,
Yes.
initially
And
when she
loves
called
this
me,
one.
she sent this one and that one.
So
And I said, well, you're gonna have to pick something and go forward. I didn't really want to influence her at that point. I wanted to hear what she was thinking, and the next thing I knew, we had it.
Yeah, it looks like Lakeshore and.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's more like the,
Yeah.
everything around there.
Keeping with the
I really
neighborhood.
thought she might submit both of them just for conversation, but
She should have.
yeah. Anyway, that's.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I was waiting for someone else to make a motion.
Yeah, you just do it.
I'll make a motion to deny the certificate of appropriateness based on the lack of complete information as detailed in the staff evaluation.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, same. All right.
It's a good example of a little bit of this, a little bit of that, it just doesn't, it's not congruous.
No, exactly right.
Okay. We'll move on to 605 East 9th.
Okay, 605 East 9th, Cylinder Works. Outstanding building, circa 1865. 19th century functional Italianate. It's in the Elston Grove Local and National Historic Districts. Description of the proposed project is construction of an entertainment stage for music performance. It's in the side yard behind the fence. Construction is partially complete. Evaluation, the wood stage with metal roof is located in the side yard and is not attached to the historic building. It's partially hidden by the existing fence. Material and location of the proposed stage meets the historic district guidelines. Staff recommendation is approval as submitted.
Any questions? Is anybody here representing?
Yes. I'm John, this is Matt.
Any questions for the gentleman here? Okay,
It's just gonna be music? No, I was reading it and it said, you're gonna do food out there.
well, they do.
That's already done.
Oh, it's already done.
Yeah.
And that's a land use.
Outside for several years now. This is just kind of.
This is going to elevate extra, well, elevating.
Oh, okay, so the,
You can see it better. Mhm. Yeah. That way if somebody tall is sitting in front of you, you can stand up.
The fence is pretty tall as it is.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. All right, any questions? All right, may I have a motion?
I'll motion to approve.
Okay, a second, please.
Second?
All in favor, same sign. Opposed? Thank you. I'm getting ahead of you. Okay, now we'll be at 401 East 9th.
401 East 9th. Applicant's name is Brett Metcalf. It's in the Elston Grove Local and National Historic Districts. Where they're contributing 19th century function. No, that's not functional. Get that. Put that in there. It's a gable front. Got it on the wrong line, so sorry about that. This one came in less than a week ago. So this was done a little fast, and it was already after I had made my visit to town, so it was done without actually seeing it myself. Aaron took some pictures for me. It's a gable front style house, but we're talking about the garage that's behind it, okay? So it's constructed in 1890. I did go look at the Sanborn maps, and it appears that the garage was there as soon as the house. But it's very ordinary little garage. So the proposed project is demolition of the garage. Evaluation is simple structure at the rear of the property. The garage is partially hidden by a privacy fence and has little visibility from 9th Street. It is suffering from demolition by neglect. A bad roof and deteriorated siding leave the building unsecured and safety hazard. Estimated renovation cost is unknown, although it would likely exceed replacement cost. Staff recommendation is approval as submitted.
Any questions?
Are they planning on keeping the fence?
Ask that too, like, what's going there? They're gonna continue with the old fence.
So the applicant or the property owner is unable to come in today. She had a family emergency which required that attention. I do not know about the fence. However, that would just be another application. So if you do believe that it meets the guidelines as well as the other requirements of the historic preservation ordinance, then please do approve it. If you're considering denying it due to insufficient information or any of that nature, I recommend continuing it, as I did speak to the applicant and they believe that would be the best path if that was going to be the option. If you're approving it, there's nothing to actually be concerned with. As Deb Parcell mentioned, it is demolition by neglect. The property owners do have a requirement to maintain their property, and demolition is not necessarily a maintenance function with that. However, I do not know about the fence, but that would just be another application in order to fence in the remaining area.
If you look at the sandboard maps, how far back do you see before it was demolition by neglect? Can you see deterioration
I
over
can't
time?
see deterioration. I can just see the location of the building. And I think it was 1895 or 1899, one of those there was a building of that exact shape sitting on that spot, and the house was there, so.
Yeah.
It's old, but it's just
125
nothing.
years old, but
Yeah, it's just sad that it hasn't been maintained.
Yeah.
do we know how long the current property owners have been there?
I do not have that information readily available. However,
It may be more recent, it may have been bad condition when they acquired.
that's a possibility. That could be considered, but really just what's in front.
For right now, it's a safety hazard.
If someone's on fire, yeah.
Yeah, it's not very
Safe,
secure.
yeah, if it's, you know.
So,
I'll make a recommendation for approval of removal.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. All right, thank you. Okay, and now we're going to go down to the maintenance review.
Alright, so this is just for 223 West 10th Street. Job is shingles. It was already approved on March 16th. And there's also, I have a discussion item after this.
Oh, yeah. I see this outside of it. Sorry. Outside my window.
Oh.
I've been wondering when they were gonna. Anyway, sorry.
The application says replace roof. Are they tearing out the whole roof or just replacing the shingles on the roof?
That shouldn't impact your decision, as it's still just a part of replacing a roof, either or option.
In many ways, this house,
Color, style, the shingles and stuff.
yeah, I reviewed that with the owner. So everything looked good.
in many ways, to me, visually, this house doesn't look any better than the one we looked just a few minutes ago. The architectural style from one elevation to the other is so totally different.
It is.
But this house is existing, that's like
It's
the
been there,
difference.
yeah.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's just
We don't need to build them that way.
not,
Yeah.
it's not pleasing to the eye. Let's put it that way.
Well, they didn't come and ask us
This
then.
Probably weren't even around.
Right.
That's what I'm thinking too.
This facade is a nice
I'm not a
facade.
fan of the shingle color, but.
These things, what in the world are
I'm
they?
assuming, well, it will be over time, yeah, it's not gonna stay
Where is
green,
this house?
so. Blue is the shingle color, but it's just the beginning of the project, so
On the north side of the street. It's the second.
we'll be seeing him.
Okay, any questions? And we will move on.
Alright, I do have something that I'm just tacking on from my earlier comment from. How about, so what is the rationale behind the maintenance reviews? Because, like, for this particular approval, work hasn't started yet, but depending on when the approval comes and what meeting gets shuffled in, the work can already be completed. So is it approving the work or is it just reviewing what staff has previously approved?
Just reviewing, yeah.
Okay. And is that an actual function that needs to be done?
Yeah.
Okay.
because you guys should know what's
Well,
been
it's
approved.
essentially a report
Yeah,
to the
we're
commission.
just, right, exactly, yeah, we're
So
just letting them know
maybe not
what
a
we did.
review,
Right.
a report.
Because there is always that option, I'm pretty sure it's, if it isn't in the city ordinance, I'm sure it's in the state, where there's that opportunity, if a property owner disagrees with the staff, they can come back to the commission and say, your staff did this and we don't agree, and then
I
they would
would
need
just
to
have
know
that to the
about
commission
that.
in the first place. I would just be like, here you go, Deb, here's a staff report.
Thanks, thank you.
With that, and the reason why I was mentioning that is I worked in a number of different municipalities and commissions don't know exactly everything. That's why I was mentioning it.
That's nothing.
Seriously, in all of mine, they do, I mean, that's just typical. They don't, obviously, you don't vote on it or anything else, but just so that you know what's going on. So if you drive by that property and you see a roof going on, you don't go, wait a minute, we didn't hear about this. So it's not necessarily that you approved it, but that you at least are aware.
And potentially for the public,
Right.
as a public meeting.
Moving forward, I will change that from review to report.
That sounds good.
That's better. Yep.
And it's unlikely that the applicant would object to staff approval,
I've never heard
but
of it
if
happening.
there's a denial.
never know.
then you never know.
Anything is possible,
Yeah.
so, but highly unlikely.
Let's hope not. Okay, any committee reports? Which I know we probably don't have because we don't know what committees. So we're working on that. Okay, so we're going to go to our table business with our commission training.
Okay, so this is going to be on and off, but it'll probably always be on the agenda for a while now. So the first thing is, and I broke it earlier, but if it's being discussed, it needs to be on the agenda. That's just for public noticing as well, which is just the legal requirement, which is 48 hours before the meeting. But also just so that, other commissioners know, staff has time to prepare. So the best avenue is before the agenda goes out. So speaking to Joyce beforehand for her blessing. And the alternative is as a part of the motion for approving the agenda. So this way that, when John is preparing the minutes, he knows exactly what's being discussed, nothing's just kind of popping up, and that also allows for good keeping of minutes so that, there is that record of the meeting. All right, that's one of the things. Any questions on that? Okay, the next one is when making a motion, so please be clear what exactly is that motion. So if it's approving it per staff's recommendation, please say that, or say the actual items in staff's recommendation. If it's just approving it as it was submitted, then that's fine. Approving as denial, then denying the actual application, then that would just kind of go into the reasons for denial. And this kind of leads into my second point is this body is a quasi-judicial body. So we're essentially a miniature courtroom. So we're looking at evidence. The application that was submitted is evidence. Staff's report is evidence. The applicant's testimony, presentation, response to questions is evidence. And we're looking at that against the Historic Preservation Ordinance and the guidelines. And that's the decision criteria. So, and then we may move forward to make actual findings of facts. Some of this is also just covering liability. Board of Zoning Appeals makes findings of facts. We don't quite need to do that yet, but that may be a change in the future. And that's just kind of making sure what we're approving and why we're approving it. Because if someone does appeal us, the decision of this body, it goes straight to court. There's no review process in between with that. And does anyone have any questions regarding that? You're the lawyer, I expect a question from you.
Some comments. I think part of the process and procedure should be when we open up or start a petition or the application here, ask first if the applicant is here, and ask the applicant to present the application before we have a report and follow it that way. In other words, rather than us initiating it, let the applicant make the presentation, say, this is my application, this is my request, then the staff can follow up with the report, then we can, and if the applicant's not here, because this says the applicant's required to attend, then we can dismiss it if we choose to do that.
And I wanted to add to that, having the applicant go first is a very beneficial way. It's kind of removes the staff being an advocate for the project. Because it's now, how the applicant presents, it could just be them saying their name, their address, and being like, this is what I want to do. They don't have to prepare a PowerPoint, which you really can't do in this room. It can be as detailed. So there's a wide range of that. And
Now, they don't have to be professional marketers or something, but,
but
just so we can see who they are, what they want to do with the property, kind of summarize it.
that is an avenue we can do. Other bodies don't do that here, but that is something that, does have its benefits and could be benefits. So if that's something you would like to, we can discuss that in the policies and procedures that I have next with that.
How often do folks come? I mean, tonight there was most of them.
Well, I've been saying they have to.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I've been emailing
Yeah.
the agenda to them.
And saying be there.
And the individual who was not able to come today, that I knew of,
Yeah, had issues, so.
she called, I spoke to her, and that's why I presented the alternative and made sure I actually asked that. As for the new construction, I just don't know. They received an email, because I sent the email, but that's also a responsibility of the applicant to
Right.
attend,
I
because
feel that's right too. It is.
Deb Parcell, myself, shouldn't be advocating for a project.
They should.
We're stating facts.
Yep.
Of what doesn't comply, what does comply. If it doesn't necessarily comply, what's the justification that we have made, why if we're recommending approval of something that doesn't actually quite apply. There's usually justifications for it, and that's kind of going to the findings of facts.
Is this being streaming live, or is this just being recorded?
This is just being recorded. However, that is probably going to change in the next few months, hopefully. We're going to move down to the council chambers, hopefully, which can be streamed live there. Alternatively, there's discussions about having meetings elsewhere in a more tech equipped room. I don't know where that is
Some
yet.
screens or something?
Yes. I don't know the exact specifics of that.
But when it says they need to attend the meeting, can they attend in person or say by Zoom or something?
So-
Or are we going to allow that, or is that for discussion?
We can discuss it. This is actually a part of that, so the greater conversation. We can, if the commission likes, we can adopt a hybrid model. That's what planning commission, city council, redevelopment commission, board of zoning appeals, running out of bodies. I think Parks Commission, most communities have moved to that in some capacity. We would have to, I believe, adopt a resolution and that's not quite a policies and procedures, even though it will need to be mentioned in here. But I believe most boards and commissions have adopted that by policy, or by resolution rather. I can prepare that if that's something. Commissioners still have to come in person though.
Yeah, makes sense. But if they have to, if they can't make it, but they still want to present their case, they should
Yes,
be able to do so.
For that though, we would have to ensure that when we do go live, we have to make sure we're always in a room that is equipped with that capacity.
I would just encourage that as well. I know I don't get to vote on this, but I'm also the one out meeting with the people, and as I see more and more people from out of town buying properties, it's not always convenient for them to be here of an evening, so I think it would be nice to give them that option.
Subject to availability of equipment.
Yes, which
Where we could see them, or we could see
If it's in-
drawings or whatever, pictures, whatever
Yeah,
they
if it's in
have.
the council chambers, that capacity is already there. So maybe we can get better capacity. Yeah.
But they would need technical capacity to be able to present their case.
Yes, however, the absolute basics of Zoom, you can do it on your phone. I believe it would be, at least the simplest presentation, which is just saying my name,
Right.
my address, and what do I want to do vocally. So, there's actually nothing to vote on this yet, but it's gonna lead into policies and procedures, I guess, if anyone has any questions. All right, so before I go over this again, actually, I guess we should discuss, would the commission be interested in having the applicant actually present first?
Yes.
I think
I would,
that's,
Yes.
Okay, can we actually have a motion for that, just so I can confirm how many people are in
So
agreement?
move.
okay, Roger's moving that we have the applicant present first. Do I have a second?
Second.
David seconds. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same. Thank you.
Okay,
And that becomes part of
that becomes part of this now.
policies.
Yes. The next is, because it was mentioned, because it would be at least referenced in the policies and procedures, would the commission be interested in adopting a resolution, which I had to prepare, it's just going to be copied from another commission, by the way, to require and move forward with hybrid meetings?
To require applicant to be present at the meeting either in person or via Zoom or some technology.
Yeah, the hybrid would facilitate that. The commissioners should still attend in person, and sorry, Deb, you still have to.
It's all right. I need to get out of the house once a month.
Yes, I think that's, so we need that as a motion.
Yes, please.
I move that you prepare us a resolution for our review at the next meeting so we can see how the language works out. Just call it proposed resolution. Resolution for review.
All right, then. I guess that leads to actually what's written here, which needs another revision now.
Pending that resolution, applicants should still appear in person.
Yes, the in-person will be preferred.
Yeah.
The hybrid model is just to help facilitate public comment, obviously, so the public can participate easier, as well as, if there's an avenue where, they were planning, but they can't actually make it. It's a little bit easier to be available through Zoom with that. And if emergency, maybe potentially commissioners as well, but in an emergency situation, I'll see what other commissions have actually adopted, because
The Plan Commission has a resolution that if we can't attend in person, then we have to let somebody know and sign papers. I mean, there's a kind of a formal procedure. You can look at that.
Yeah, I'll probably just copy either planning commission or board of zoning appeals with that. So,
And Amy had the second.
yeah.
Okay, did we vote on it?
No,
No, sorry.
that's all right. All in favor? Opposed? Same. I hope you'd remembered what you're voting for. Sorry. Thank you.
All right. So for the policies and procedures, so some of this will need to be slightly changed. Does the commission want to, I can review it in full if that's advisable, but there really hasn't been any other changes other than, I think I added the 10 minutes here. There's something I added, I just don't remember what now.
Sharon?
Yes.
I have a question on number 10, under commission.
Yep.
It just comes out and says, nothing gives any indication on the other 9, but the project will not be approved and will require a formal submittal. Where did that come from after you've listed all these other things above it?
All right, so the workshop is really meant to be more of so anything that's really submitted to the commission as of right now requires a formal decision to be made. However, there's going to be instances of projects that may require some discussion without it. You know, and it won't be realistic to have a formal decision made at that meeting. So this is really aimed for larger projects, you know, most of which the commission hasn't really seen. So this is really meant to, you know, aid in that, but it doesn't necessarily have to be for project development. It could also just be for, could be just its own meeting for guidelines as well. I know we just updated them. So, even though some of these steps might not actually line up with that, but it's really meant to remove the legal requirement for a formal decision to be made.
I can understand that's coming from, and what I've been seeing in the papers about the depot block being developed. I have, as an architect, I have real concern about the way that's going to look. A building that's going to be twice as tall as a Warren building, sitting there in the middle of nothing. I just visually cannot appreciate that looking that way. And would this commission have anything to say about that happening or not?
So the commission can only make decisions based on the guidelines as well as the historic preservation ordinance. So that's article, section, chapter, whatever we call it here.
Right, and that project.
Chapter 62.
That project is in the district.
Yes. However, at the same time, this body does not have purview over zoning. The planning commission has purview over zoning. So it is for which is the reason why at the very end of the second page, the Historic Preservation Commission scope does not include the following, and there are several zoning elements. So this is an instance of where there is a balance between that, and while in general, not talking about the station block development, that small scale development usually does not pencil out these days. It's just not economically feasible to do a project and not have the scale associated with it for it to actually be achievable.
That's money that governs, like always.
With that. Now, in various different parts of the historic district, there's different zoning code allowances for different height requirements. Most of the form-based code, I believe, allows the max, I believe, depending on where you are, is 6 or 7 floors. Don't quote me on that number. And then there's others that technically have no height limit. Now, economics will dictate height requirements. But the form-based code also extends beyond the historic district in various portions. So right now, while there may be some developments that are on the edge of the historic district or even within that may seem out of place, that doesn't necessarily mean they will always be out of place. And historic preservation...
Well, yeah, but that's... Sure, it's, if you... I guess I just don't know how to put it, but was the Warren building considered out of place when it was built?
Most likely.
Well, how tall was the Spalding?
Yeah, the spot.
Spalding was 8.5, 9.5.
So it was higher than the Warren building.
Correct.
Oh, yeah,
And historic preservation is not about,
picture of it right over there.
Yeah.
ensuring that, we're a museum. It's about, regulating change and ensuring change is appropriate. And sometimes what is appropriate, it's not the best word probably, but it's common historic preservation language, is changes. It changes with the times, it changes with what is actually happening.
But this is like the second or third proposal we've seen for that block.
So there has not been the only formal proposal has been the parking garage, which I believe is just 2 stories. Everything else is concept. So there hasn't been any actual formal submittal. So for example, when that project does come in front of you, you're just looking at what's actually being submitted. The previous approval is more of a sidebar, but all the previous concepts that were sent out or made available through whatever meeting, either the press release or any of that nature, is really just outside of the conversation for that. But there's multiple areas that, are within the historic district, there's empty lots, and those will see a varying developments associated with that. So some of them will be taller, some of them will probably be less tall with that, but I can speak from experience in all the communities I worked in. It's very hard to do like a 3-4 story building because the economics doesn't work out. And when you do make them work out, it's not necessarily achieving all the objectives.
One of the things here was to save the front of the whole building. And boy, that's it. I mean, it looks like the last drawing I've seen is just that stuck like a piece of glue to the front of the building, and that's it. It doesn't fit.
And just so you're aware that what was released to the public in the press release is not an actual, it's a concept. It's not associated with that. So in terms of the actual policies and procedures, I would love to have an actual approval, but that I understand that's not achievable. I can revise it with the hybrid as well as the applicant presents first and then bring it back next month, if that's how the commission would.
What is the time frame here for this, for buildings?
I don't know the exact questions.
We're getting off on stuff that none of us know the answer to, so
However, I can say there is a aggressive timetable associated with that. And the redevelopment commission did approve one of the agreements earlier today.
Okay. The historic preservation ordinance does provide a list of different factors, right? 10 or 12 or 20 or whatever it is.
And the policies and
Of
procedures.
that. But it says those were to give consideration to those.
Right.
They're not hard, fast, they're written in stone, pun intended, necessarily. So part of the analysis for us to consider might be at what level of project, whether it's scope of project, a dollar amount or something, that we want to have written findings of fact to address those items, either by formal staff review, how it fits in, or by our consideration, so that, especially when we come to some of these larger projects, we give due consideration to all these historic preservation factors, not the zoning things, but the historic preservation issues there, so that we can document that, especially for some of the bigger projects.
Yeah, and that will, as mentioned earlier about findings of facts, there'll be justification of why it's being approved, even if it doesn't quite 100% align with the guidelines or the historic preservation ordinance. This body, as well as every other historic preservation commission in the country, occasionally approves things that don't 100% align. It's just making the findings of why. Sometimes that ranges from something as simple as replacement windows for replacing original wood windows. Sometimes that ranges from demolitions. There's a whole number of ways that ranges. But that's just a part of the evidence that you'll be submitting. And I cannot guarantee that any large development will necessarily go the workshop model. However, just so you're aware that the Historic Preservation Commission is one step in an approval process for a commercial development in the Northern Form-Based Code, which does extend beyond the historic district. And that process, just for your education, would include Historic Preservation Commission, then Development Review, which is all the city departments just provided comment, and then Planning Commission for final approval. So, for example, for West 5th Street, when that project does come back, eventually it gets approved, hopefully in some capacity that is appropriate, would get approved here, go to development review, and then it would go to planning commission for a full public hearing. So Mr. Rehnquist will see it twice. So there's a step processes associated with that, and all those reviews are looking at different things. In the case of this, in the policies and procedures, it's just looking at the historic preservation ordinance and by extension the guidelines, as the guidelines are meant to flush out some of those and actually give them more of a framework to work within.
Yeah, that's, findings of fact is something that I do for other commissions, especially if something looks like it's gonna be controversial, something that's going against the guidelines, perhaps something where work has already been done, and then we're dealing with it after the fact. But I write that as a separate thing, and then that's read and approved if so desired, and then a motion's made after that. So I think that would be a really good thing to do going forward, because when we have those exceptions, it needs to be noted why things went the way they did. Because if you end up in court.
Yeah.
However, I do want to mention, if we do findings, and this is probably more work for Deb and myself, that it may be beneficial to do findings for every item, just for consistency purposes. Now, having said that, I don't believe you need to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals method, which is, a project gets approved, and then you have to come back and get the approval for the findings of orders. Our enabling legislation that allows this commission to exist is different from the Board of Zoning Appeals as well as the Planning Commission. However, they're all based in the larger planning and zoning. So some consistency will also aid some applicants as they go through the process, just because there may be a development standard variance, which is a variance from setbacks, for example, or a use variance to allow formerly commercial use to be residential, or a structure that had to originally built as a single family, was used as a commercial building, and they want to convert it back to a single family. It looks like a single family, basically, if it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And that has its own process. So that's part of the reason for the update in the applications as well, and potentially any minor revisions, which I've been making as I notice either typos or things that need to be addressed that don't substantially change it. That's why they're not coming back here, but they're just reworking wordings essentially.
Any other discussion? Any other business that needs to come before us?
Do you want to confirm, come back with this next month with the changes for applicant first and the hybrid model?
Yes.
Yeah. We did that.
Okay, just want to make sure. 'Cause
And something to address the findings of fact issue, whether that's, however you fit it in to come with initial staff review reporting. So we can address those. I think consistency would be very good.
Anything else that we need to add?
If the application itself is part of the policies and procedures, then I have some comments, because I looked this up online, very nice, clever online thing, a form to fill out. So, because I saw all this stuff printed out, it says, wow, this is nice, good development here. But I looked it online, and I had a hard time finding it. So if we go to this, if you go to the webpage, it still says Historic Review Board, so we should change the webpage so that our commission is consistent.
Exactly.
So people know what it is. And then link the application, put a hyperlink in there so it's easy for the public to find and get that. So you can put it somewhere there on the board. And then on the one application, it has owner name and then applicant name, and there are two different ones, like on the 119th 9th Street. So if the applicant is different than the owner, then who is the applicant? So there should be some reference for a relationship there. Who are they? Is that the contractor? Is it?
I guess another way of adding, would the commission prefer if there is a difference between owner and applicant, we require owner authorization, or if it's in case of the LLC, proof of that person is actually the owner. It's the easiest way of, or I can just add a line and ask what the relationship is.
Yes, like with Mr. Carlson was here, so who is he? Is he with the company, or is he just a contractor, or is he, you know, so we have some idea of who's who and who's not cursed here.
Yeah, because over here we had both.
Yes, also the owner of the property was sitting there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's the contractor.
Application, all this.
And if it's a business, then it'd be good for them to put their full legal name, like Lakeside Cottages is actually an LLC, so that informs us that they're an authorized entity, you know, good standing.
Any other points? Thank you, David.
Then it references, I have reviewed the City of Michigan City's historic district guidelines. So where does an applicant find that? I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
they
looking
asked
for
for it,
it. I mean,
right?
we've seen them here, but I'm looking online and I couldn't find them online.
Yeah. You really
So
have to-
we are, sorry Deb, putting you on the spot. Right now, I've been sending out the draft guidelines as requested.
Okay.
In full disclosure, most people probably don't read that, they just sign it. It's a problem with most applications.
But at some point, if you make that a hyperlink so they can go to it.
Right, and it will be. We're
Okay, okay.
waiting. Our designer, her husband was hit on a bicycle,
Oh.
wound up in the hospital,
That's
so
okay,
it's like,
just an observation.
we're close, we're
Yes,
close.
that will be, so the application does have some tweaks that will happen on and off, and that would be referencing that, as well, because that would just be making it simpler, but applicants, you know, they're reviewing electronically, most of them are filling it in electronically now. But there's still occasionally the actual paper filling out, so that won't be an instance, but even then, the guidelines will be available for review. I'll have a printed copy of it. I'm just holding off on printing a bunch of copies until there's actually a final one.
Yeah.
Okay, just some comments, observations, thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, any other comment? Can we have
One final comment on the agenda.
Yes,
If we have public comment down here, which you could, I don't think there's any public here tonight,
oh yes, any public? No.
but add an agenda item for commissioner comments, if that's be an appropriate way for us to make miscellaneous comments.
It would be.
Yeah, do we have, is that gonna be a motion?
I move that we add item, well, on this one,
It could
I
be
guess,
11.
after public comment,
It changes.
yeah, but add an agenda item for commissioner comments.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Tony. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same.
All right, while we're adding stuff to the agenda, would the commission like a specific session called out for staff comments?
Sure. I mean, if staff would like the opportunity, be beyond just a staff report.
Yeah, in Angola, they actually have that, it's a line item, right at the end is commission and staff comment, it's one line item.
Okay.
So they just go around and everybody that has something to say says it, and then the meeting's over.
amend your
Okay,
motion.
amended to commission and staff comments.
There you go.
And you agree?
After public comment.
Are these comments that become part of the record also?
Yes.
Yes, so be careful.
Keep that in mind.
Please keep all comments rated G.
We should say that.
Have you known me not to?
Never. Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Can do it here.
Oh, look at here, she won. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.